to Mom Squad, where we talk all things parenting. I'm Maureen Kyle, and I am on location today at a local grocery store, Heinen's, and we're talking about one of the biggest issues parents have every school year, which is, what am I going to pack in those school lunches? If you're like me, every year about this time in August, I have very high hopes for what I'm going to be able to pack on a daily basis. I think it's going to be healthy, it's going to be healthy, it's going to be tasting good, the kids are going to love it, and then a month in, I run out of ideas. But we are going to get some great ideas today and also talk about your kids' overall health. And helping me do that today is Melanie Jatsek with Heinen's. She's a dietitian. Melanie, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is great.
You have set up some really great displays, and I want to talk about just school lunches in general. I mean, I think we all want to hit that nutritional value, and it's really difficult to keep those ideas coming, but you have some ideas for us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I created this kind of like as a mix and match thing, right? So there's 4 categories, and you pick one from each, right? And you have countless options for each, so you could do your, meal planning, your shopping according to these lists, and then you just pick, mix and match, and try to keep it as colorful and as exciting as possible. But so there's, do you want me to talk about the categories?
I do want to know about the categories, because that sounds great. That sounds like something I should be doing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Sure. So the categories are fruits, vegetables, right? So those are 2. Then we got whole grains, and then we got some protein, and then actually there's 5. I added a bonus one, which is the treat. You know, growing up, my mom always put something special like that in my lunch. So whether it was a Little Debbie's snack cake or something like that, which is, but she'd put that in, and I'm like, you needed that. I always looked forward to that. Right. So, that was the 5th little component that I wanted to add to this. But, all of those are important just because you need the vitamins and minerals, obviously, in those fruits and veggies. Yeah. You need them for, general health, for the immune system, for fiber, and we can talk about that later. But I mean, there's so much that we get from plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and even some plant-based proteins that, we can't live without, really. Yeah. We can't live without.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I always feel the pressure to put like the turkey in there or some sort of like animal-based protein, and I always wonder, are those vegetables and whole grain proteins going to be enough? Yeah. So let's talk about the first meal that you have laid out for us here. Yeah. So what do we have in this bento box, which are great, because fun, then the foods don't touch.
They're fun, I know. Yes. Now there's bigger bento boxes for older kids, so this would be for a smaller child, obviously. But so the first box is a zucchini noodle, so it's just completely spiralized zucchini mixed with some edamame, right? So edamame are fun, they're high protein, they're high fiber, great for the brain, some cherry tomatoes, and then to keep it simple, I mean, this is all pre-packaged, right? Yeah. You just throw it together. Right. I just added a little bit of a nice vinaigrette to that, and it's done. I mean, you could sprinkle some other stuff on it if you like, but it's simple. Right.
I'm going to show the spiralized zucchini. So these are already spiralized, ready to eat, but I have a spiralizer that I don't think I've ever used. I've never used it, but like that's a tool in the kitchen that somebody could use and spiralize. What else besides zucchini, in case kids are like, oh,
no, zucchini,
not zucchini.
Like there's some great, and I wish I would have brought the box over here, there's some great bean-based pastas. So for those kids that might be like either with celiac disease or gluten intolerance in the family that we're trying to keep things gluten-free, there's some wonderful bean-based pastas out there, high in protein, but made with like chickpeas. So you can boil that up like you would regular pasta and use that just in place of the zucchini. Yeah. So I get it. Not every kid's gonna like zucchini, but they've got spiralized sweet potatoes and all that. But the noodle itself, I mean, there's a whole slew of different shapes and things like that.
I'm glad you brought it up, and we're gonna probably talk about that as we go throughout these different foods. But talking about the sensitivities, so many more are popping up if it comes to gluten or lactose, or just if you could talk a little bit quickly, because you have some of these set out here, about cutting out some of those items, when is it right? When do you need to do it? Should we be trying it?
Right.
What are those signs?
Well, first, if someone in the family has an intolerance that you already know of, like celiac disease, it's probably best to just keep the gluten out of the kitchen. But, little things, like you and I were talking before we went on air, little things like brain fog, or not so much kids, but with adults, joint pain, that could signify a gluten intolerance. And so if that's the case, and sometimes digestive issues, but not always, right? So if that's the case and you're suspecting it for yourself or your child, it's not gonna hurt to go gluten-free.
Right.
To try that for a trial of a couple of weeks, remove it all, not just a little, but remove it all and see how that affects your child.
Yeah. Full disclosure, and I was telling Melanie earlier, my middle child, we were noticing some just sluggish behavior. We were like, something is wrong. We can't figure out what it is. So we have her cutting out gluten, which is difficult. So I'm glad that you have some of the options, because she's looking at her sisters going, well, why can't I eat that?
Right.
But we're doing it as a family too, to help.
And let's be honest,
support.
There's a lot of gluten-free junk out there. I mean, there's gluten-free cookies, and so just because it says gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy.
Right.
So you got to kind of still do your homework to make sure that what you're offering is nutritious. For example, one of my favorites are the Power Snacks.
Okay.
They're the Navita's Power Snacks, and they're made with I think it's dates or figs, but they've got all kinds of good stuff in there, seeds and things like that. But they're sweet. They're gluten-free naturally, but they're actually good for you. So it could be a treat to replace a cookie or something like that.
Yeah. And so that's right. I'm assuming that's what you have in the middle
In
of
the
this.
small little,
The bento box is the little treat, which
the little
my girls do love dates. They don't say like, this is not a treat, Mom, or like, this isn't a cookie. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So we have the zucchini pasta. We have the treat in the middle, but what else do we have?
Yeah, so my favorite. Okay, so I follow mostly a plant-based diet, and I know a lot of families that are trying to do more plant-based. So the red is one of our best plant-based burgers that we sell, and it is a bean-based burger. And each variety, there's like 4 different varieties. Each has different vegetables added to it. This one particular has beets, but it doesn't taste like it because it's mixed with beans and oats and different flavors.
Oh, wow.
So they're getting lots of fiber, good amount of protein in that, very fulfilling and sustaining. So that's going to keep them full. So that is one of the most amazing. There's a lot of junky veggie burgers out there, a lot of fillers, a lot of just stuff you don't want in your food, especially if it's you can't pick up some of these ingredients and find them on the shelf. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
This is made with all food.
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
That's why and you just pan fry it 5 minutes each side. You could do these ahead of time, stick it in the fridge, and that's
awesome.
the prettiest one of all.
Right. I know, the color.
Yeah, and then just the little crackers up there are cauliflower crackers. So they're made with a cauliflower potato mixed. They're gluten-free. They've got cheesy ones so that it kind of mimics the Cheez-It type thing.
Yeah.
But they're just, again, it's not a health food, but it's just a better option versus what's out there. There's no artificial anything in that.
Yeah,
So
sneaking in these veggies when we can.
even if it's in a cracker, right? I mean, it all counts.
Yes,
It all counts.
yes.
Yeah.
And of course, we have the go-to little orange. I mean, that always ends up in my kids' lunches because it's so easy.
Right?
Yeah.
Feels real easy.
Yeah. All right. So what else do we have for our next lunch idea
So I
here?
wanted to do like a little yogurt parfait box, right? Because those are so fun and easy. So there's different types of yogurts out there. I know that the dairy can be another issue for kids.
Yeah.
So there's also plant-based yogurts. This one's made with cashew milk. So the idea here is that you have yogurt, then you've got some granola, some fruit, and some these right here are walnuts, but they're flavored very naturally with banana, and they're a little sweet. So that's kind of like you put it all together. It's sort of like the little yogurt parfait. You could even dip some. I had to add vegetables in there.
Yeah.
But the great thing about the Stonyfield organic yogurt, especially the kids ones, is that they have vegetable varieties in there. So they sneak in some carrot in the yogurt.
Yeah.
And because carrots are sweet, you're not really tasting.
Right.
It,
I love
genius.
You also included the rainbow carrots.
Yes, because they're fun.
It's fun.
They're fun.
Yes. Is there any added benefit to the rainbow carrots, or is it pretty much same nutrition content?
Well, no, because anytime you get a different color, you get a different nutritional benefit. So, you know, the purple carrots are like high in the anthocyanins, and that's what's found in blueberries, which is good for the brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's any color you see in produce, not artificial stuff.
Yeah.
Any color you see is just going to give you, you know, a different benefit in the body.
Right.
Yeah.
I laugh because walnuts, when I was a kid, my grandma would put walnuts in brownies. She would bake us brownies, come to visit, and
Did you hate it?
You know what I told her? I said, when I'm grown up, I'm not going to make my kids eat that, Grandma. So mixing in nuts into a kid's into their diet.
Yeah.
What kind of benefits do we see? And because I feel like this is a good way to sneak it in, but you couldn't fool me with the brownies. Right.
I mean, that was a buzzkill, wasn't it? To get a brownie with a walnut in it. Who wanted that? Yeah, you know, the benefit of it, especially with walnuts in particular, are those omega-3 fats, which are super powerful for the brain.
Yeah.
These omega-3s are like, you know, we can't get them from anything other than our food, and they're super powerful for anti-inflammatory effects in the body, but also really important for the brain. So if you can sneak them in, these are nice and sweet, and, you know, they have like a different crunch and flavor to them.
Right.
But even in a nice trail mix, maybe not walnuts in a trail mix, but things like almonds or cashews or pistachios, fun things that you could mix with, you know, some dried fruit or something like that, you know, would be great. Even some cereal that is not loaded with junk.
Yeah.
We'll have some of those examples over there.
My kids will find every sliver of almond and pick it out, but pistachios, for some reason, they're totally fine with.
They're
so
just,
it's like finding that
salt,
one thing.
You know, it could be
they don't
pistachios
equate.
are great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
that's a
awesome.
good idea. All right, we want to move on to our next one. I'm loving all of the fruit and vegetable combinations here. What do we have for our next bento box meal?
This was a homemade little variety here. So we have in the top quadrant here, they are energy bites, that homemade energy bites that in the recipe, you know, you can reference it on the website, but the ingredients are oats, peanut butter, or any kind of nut butter. We've got some flaxseed in there and some chia seed, which again, the omega-3s, very powerful for the brain. A little bit of raw honey and shredded coconut, and if there's a coconut allergy, you just remove it because there's not that much in there. And then you just, you know, your kids could help make these, roll them up into little balls, stick them in the refrigerator, and plop a couple. That would be your protein. Because it also has hemp seeds in it, which is good for, you know, for protein and just good brain health and omega-3s. So those are your substitute for your meat. You know, if you wanted to put a protein powder, a kid's protein powder in there, you could add that to the mix, and then it could even be a little higher in protein. So that was a fun thing.
The first time I was throwing hemp seeds on salads, and a coworker looked at me like I was crazy when I was like, I've been eating hemp seeds. Not very healthy, very safe for ingestion, right? I mean, this is not
Yes, hemp seeds are amazing, especially because of the omega-3s. Again, it goes back to omega-3s, and it's a great protein source. If you could add them to salads, great. Add them to you could even sprinkle it on oatmeal. You could throw them in a smoothie, make an energy ball. Nobody will ever know that half the stuff that's in there is in there.
Right.
And you could add all kinds of stuff to those, but that's a very basic recipe. That could, you know, if you're bored with a sandwich or you're bored with all these other things, you know, it's a nice alternative. You know. And the dips and stuff with the veggies. Some of the dips can be pretty junky. The hummus that I have here is Hope hummus, which is made with olive oil, and a lot of hummuses are made with canola oil and oils that are more inflammatory in the body. So you want to look for, you know, an olive oil, or even better yet, tahini or that sesame seed paste, which is authentic. Authentic hummus.
And I used to tease my daughter because she wouldn't touch hummus. And so I used to say, stop asking for hummus, stop asking for hummus. Oh, Millie wants hummus today. I teased her so much, she eventually was like, fine, I'll try it. And then loves it. Loves it. We do hummus all the time for lunch.
Yay.
So just point being, I've always heard, give them the option of trying something like, what is it, 3 to 5 times?
Yeah, I've even heard more than that. Yeah.
So-
Depending on how picky. I've even heard more. And a lot of parents will give up. And I get it, right? I get that.
Yeah.
But that's smart. You kind of used a little reverse psychology.
I totally used the reverse psychology on
awesome.
it. Yeah, and
That's
so it ended up working out. And then the blue corn chips.
Yes, so these are called Sochil. They are a great tortilla chip that a little bit of salt, but also healthier oils that are added to it versus some of the more inflammatory oils. But they're crunchy, they're great. It's a whole grain, right? Tortilla chips, if they're made with whole corn, are a whole grain. And so these are, certified gluten-free and just non-GMO, all good things, but they're tasty.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they're taking something in that's good for them.
Right.
But they are, and they're lower in sodium as well.
I was going to ask about the salt content because I always think of that as more of an adult issue. But with kids, should we be watching the sodium intake?
With salt, it's important to trust our bodies. I have to say that. So there's a problem that we don't have an issue of getting too much salt in this country. It's usually the opposite. But our bodies are so brilliant that they will tell us when we need some and when we need to back off. Thirst kicks in. Okay, I gotta flush that out, right?
Yeah.
If you're outside sweating and you just or you go for a really nice long run, or your kids are playing and they want something salty. That's their body telling them. Now, you want to make sure that they're getting salt from better sources, right? But they've got a little bit of sea salt in them. They're nice. It's a nice amount, but not too much. But they taste saltier than they are.
Okay.
So, it's important, and of course, the more whole food you add, the sodium takes care of itself. Yeah. So to speak. But it is. You want to watch it because sodium can come from some really junky sources. Right. And, but
I want to talk about the next meal because I know my kids, if there's hot dogs available at school, they'll love it, but it looks like you have a healthier alternative over here.
Yeah, so they're pre-cooked.
Okay.
So they're called the Belinsky sausages, and there's 4 or 5 different varieties. So if that looks a little too green for the kids, there are other varieties out there. But so these are unprocessed. There's no fillers. There's no junk in them, which is so important. If you're going to give them something, you want to make sure it doesn't have all those preservatives and fillers and things like that in it. So that's a nice chicken sausage. It's spinach, and it's tasty. It's got the salt in it, so it's going to mimic, but it's chicken instead of beef. And you could use that if you're tired of the lunch meats and stuff. You could use that as a nice alternative.
I love it.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
pre-cooked.
Guacamole.
Yeah, guacamole cups that you could use as the dip instead of hummus or instead of ranch dressing. Guacamole's great. Yeah. The crackers are called Mary's Gone crackers. They're a nice little seed cracker. You either love them or you don't, but if you like crunch, that's a great cracker. Okay. And then the little sweet is just a date that I just stuffed with peanut butter. So it's sweet, and it's creamy and sweet, and it'll satisfy that itch.
Now let me ask you too, because we've had a lot of healthy crackers and healthy alternatives. Is there anything wrong with the good old Ritz or just buttery cracker if you're throwing a few? Because I know mine sometimes if there's too many seeds or it looks too different. They resist.
Yeah.
And they want the
at the end of the day, you want to pick your battles. So if the lunch itself is almost there and they want a Ritz cracker, give them the Ritz cracker.
Right.
There are some alternatives out there that are a little bit better, more natural. So you always want to look for, if you want to be able to pronounce the ingredients and know what they are. And a lot of these, there's added colors and oils that aren't going to serve them. So there's always a better option. But again, at the end of the day, pick your battle. If they're willing to take most of it, and they just want the Ritz cracker, you gotta.
right. Which I've had the Marys and they're great. I do love them.
But they're crunchy and they're different.
It just depends. I have a just turned 5-year-old. It depends on the day if she's going to try something healthy or not.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Right. The watermelon she'll eat all day.
Yeah, right.
But the crackers, it depends. She gets picky. All right, and then we have Looks like, is that like a breakfast inspired?
It sort of is.
Okay.
It's like half breakfast, so it's a hard-boiled egg, and if you don't have time, they've already got them all boiled up for you. All you gotta do is open the bag and slice it, or you can take 5-10 minutes and boil the eggs. And then it's got a string cheese. Again, this is a really nice pasture-raised, grass-fed cow string cheese, which means it's higher in the omega-3s, gives it a little extra protein. The cereal, there's a lot of, again, cereals out there that have too much sugar and all that. The Cascadian Farm line that has just regular, it mimics sort of like Cheerios, but they're O's without, all the added sugar and all that in it. That would be a nice little crunch. And then, if you're tired of fresh fruit, these little Bear fruit snacks are a great little, they're a roll, but they're just 100% fruit. There's nothing but like strawberries and pears in there, and that's it.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay. I've seen that brand, we've never tried it.
Yeah, it's different. And so then we've got, of course, our veggie. We always want to have our vegetable, sugar snap peas, and jicama.
I never think of jicama. I see it all the time, and I never get it, and I'm a health nut, so.
I get so excited.
Do I need to cook it? Can I just chop? I just chop it.
Here's the thing. You can cut it and peel. You got to peel it.
Okay.
But at Heinen's, and I don't know about other grocery stores, but Heinen's, we have them already cut up for you in containers. So you just take them out. But I like to buy them. It's just sort of like this Zen thing going on. You cut it and you peel it and you slice it. If you really just need to calm down, take a jicama and just cut it and slice it. And then it adds just the right amount of crunch and sweet. It's a little bit sweet. Yeah. But it's great to add to veggies.
Okay.
And really good fiber content, what we call prebiotic fiber. Okay. Feeds the good bacteria in the gut. That's what jicama does.
I've had it at restaurants.
Yeah.
And actually the kids have tried it, they didn't complain about it. So now I'm going to add it in there.
And even if you wanted somebody, at least at Heinen's, when we cut, if you're afraid to cut it because it looks sort of very intimidating, they'll cut it for you in the back.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to add that in. Now, what about the dressing that you have included?
Yeah, so the dressing, this is a dressing that has healthy oils in it, which is important. So it's got a high oleic safflower oil. It's a ranch dressing. It tastes like ranch because it's ranch, but it just substitutes the not so good for you oils with better ones. Got it. That one's in the refrigerated section. Yeah. But as a dip, absolutely. They're going to want a dip.
Right. I even question that even for adults, but especially kids, because I feel like you can get any kid to eat any vegetable if they can dip it in ranch.
Yes.
And even if it's not like what if it's a sour cream base? Because I've made my own ranch dip at home, and I've always questioned, is this how much should we be using of it? A little bit.
A couple tablespoons of it is fine. Okay. Yes, here, if you're going to eat the vegetable dipped in even something that's not this type of dressing, right? Maybe it's just a regular old cheaper version of the ranch dressing. I would rather the child eat with the dip versus not eat the vegetable at all.
Yes.
Right. Because what they're going to get, they're not guzzling it, hopefully, but what they're going to get with that vegetable, it's minuscule
benefits
compared to the benefits they're going to get.
That makes me feel better even as an adult.
Yes, yes. I tell people, just eat them. I don't care how you eat them, but eat them.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. And then I have to say, we've kind of passed by the waters that you have laid out, the hint waters.
Love the hint waters.
So, and why is that?
So here's the thing. Juices, I'm not a fan, unless it's a green juice. And if you show me a child that'll drink a green juice, I want to meet that child. So I wasn't even going to put that out here because I'm a little realistic there. Yeah. But juices are they go straight to the blood sugar and they increase the blood sugar. And that's, we want to treat our dietary patterns as if we're balancing blood sugar, because that balances energy, brain health, and all that stuff. So I'm not a fan of juices, but I am a fan of flavored waters. Yeah. And hint itself is just literally, it's what it is. It's a hint of fruit that's been infused into the water. So it's no added sugars, none of that other junk in there. Yeah. It's one of the best. Yeah. It's one of the best. They even sell little kid bottles of hint as well. So I think that's great if you can can get them to drink some fruit infused water or make your own. You can make your own very easily at home.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've tried. Yes. And,
Does it work?
Sometimes. It depends on what I've infused it with. So, because one likes lemon, one doesn't. And I've even thrown like watermelon
there you go.
in the water.
To sweeten it up.
And that's worked. Yeah.
Sometimes what you can also do is if you're trying to sweeten it up a little bit more, you can make you can freeze like orange juice or grape juice or apple juice
in ice cube trays.
Okay. And then plop one in the water and let it melt, and it sweetens it up a little more naturally.
That's a great idea.
Without all that juice.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Melanie, you have laid out a whole bunch of great ideas for us. We have the link to all of these ideas and the recipes to the Power Bites, which I have made in the past. Kids actually loved them.
Oh, yeah.
I have tested a lot of these healthy things on my kids, and I have been surprised because I think a lot of parents think their kids are going to be resistant. And you'd be surprised at a couple of tries, maybe it's on the first time, but kids are pretty receptive to some of these ideas.
It's also important to make sure that they see you modeling that, because if you're eating McDonald's every day, you can't expect that child to eat avocados and broccoli. So that's so key. It's so key, and I know you model that.
Yeah,
we talked.
I've been a health nut. I'm just trying to make sure my kids are too.
Yeah, and
I don't want them to go the opposite way and be like, Mom made us eat broccoli all day.
80-20, right? Because if you don't give them the other stuff, they're gonna go off to college. I've seen it.
Yes.
And they're gonna go off the deep end with their food. So you want to be realistic. And I think you are.
I love the ratios, all of these ideas. I'm gonna try jicama. So Melanie, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And again, we are going to have a link to all of these ideas on our website. And I'll put them on our Mom Squad Facebook page. Have you joined us? Look for Mom Squad with Maureen Kyle on Facebook. That's where we share ideas, we share stories, and that's where we also want to hear from you. So if you have a question that you'd like us to take to the experts, let us know. We will get expert advice. So thanks again to Melanie and to Heinen's, and thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you right back here on Mom Squad next week.